that's pretty much true for like people of color throughout the entire United States. Like the neighborhoods that were built were not built for people of color. They were built for white people. They were built for upper class people. And it was for the or for the people of color to either work for them, to raise their kids. And then they also at some point began to be a push for white couples to start adopting, not only, Black children, but Native children. Like there was a huge push for social services to do that. But ultimately, like that whole thing, like I said, has like this bottom line construct of like America needed to like fix itself. It needed to like start paying back some debt. It needed to start making some money. And so like they started selling this American dream. And then like that's how marriage became a part of that dream. In order to be happy, you must be married. And so for women who like study after study after study has shown that women are not happy in marriage.
Really?
It's just, there's so many different studies. One study found that like women were very happy at the end of their lives, very happy at the beginning of their lives, but there was definitely like a downward curve, like in the middle where they were married. And I'm reading this study out of a book called Dead Blondes and Bad Mothers by Sadie Doyle. It says a 2017 study by the National Health Service found that women were unhappier than men all of their lives, especially unhappy in the prime marriage and child-rearing decades of their 30s, 40s, and 50s.
Wow.
But that female happiness saw a sharp uptick once the women reached their mid-80s because, can you guess?
Because their husbands died.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And like divorcees like tended to be really much happier with themselves. But the thing is like men, their happiness actually has a curve that goes the other way during their marriage years.
Oh, can we talk about that? I have theories.
Yeah. So essentially like women and their suffering, whether that be like sacrifice of self or sacrifice of body, is necessary to the functioning of society.
Mm-hmm.
It basically leads to us teaching our youth that their happiness is not as valuable outside the nuclear family framework to this day.
Absolutely. That all makes sense to me. I mean, in marriage, how much conversation has there been? How much research has there been, especially in recent years, into how, although marriages are supposed to be getting more egalitarian all the time, women are still doing all of the shit work in most marriages.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Women are doing the cooking and the cleaning and the wiping of the children's butts. You know, they're doing the shitty stuff, and they're very often doing it because their husbands won't. So if, like, just at that very, very practical level, if we're looking at happiness quotients, like, of course, a man's going to be happier when he's married. He's got this person to do everything for him. And I know I'm making sweeping generalizations here. Anybody listening, please do not fly into a rage. I know that not every marriage is like that. It is still overwhelmingly true that in most heterosexual marriages, women do almost all of the shitty work while dudes, you know, have either social lives or more involved professional lives, or play video games or play, you know, football out back with the kids, like whatever the case may be.
Okay, so I'm going to back you up with this with studies.
Yay! Okay, I'm not just shooting things off at the mouth.
No, actually, a study done this year, according to a report by Oxfam and the Institute for Women's Policy Research, found that women in the United States spend 2 hours more each day cooking, cleaning, and taking care of children and other unpaid work than men.
2 hours a day? That's
2 hours a day.
Hours. Holy crap.
So the study found that women aged 15 and older spend 5.7 hours daily doing housework and looking after kids and elders, while men at the same age range do 3.6 hours each day.
Huh. I am not surprised to hear that.
So, yeah. And the thing is that when women move in with men, they actually have an increase in the amount of work that they do around the house the second that they move in with a man. And
because men are like, oh, sock. I'm gonna put a sock over here.
And the men actually have a decrease in the amount of work that they spend doing or the time they spend doing unpaid work.
Again, like I don't want to be rude here because I know that not everybody has the situation and I don't want to be making sweeping generalizations, but women are raised to see themselves in the domestic care role. Like, and I know that like the advertising industry is trying to get better about this, et cetera, et cetera. But like, you know, when you watch commercials and there's something being marketed like dish soap, you don't see men in dish soap commercials because men don't do dishes, you know. Right. And it's a self-perpetuating cycle there, you know. Women see themselves as the ones who are supposed to take on these roles. That's what we see in media. That's what we are taught often by our mothers and grandmothers. And so therefore when we enter into a relationship like that, we don't necessarily think about it, we just do it. That's what you're supposed to do. And that just gets perpetuated, you know, ad nauseum. But it's also part of like a deeper pattern, like you said, of sacrifice, of self-sacrifice, because underneath the doing the dishes and taking care of the kids level, there's a much deeper level of women being raised to take care of men emotionally.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Doing what we must to make sure that our men are okay. And, you know, sacrificing our own happiness for them. And that definitely, I mean, I'm sure I can't even imagine the number of studies that reflect this. But it also, like, it sucks not just for women. And I think it's important to say because men are really taught that their only deep emotional relationship is supposed to be with their wife or their significant other. And there have been a lot of studies that have come out recently. I can't cite them. I don't have them in front of me. About how like adult men in America are miserable. They don't have friends. They don't have strong family relationships. They have one relationship with their one married significant other. And when you have a dynamic like that, where one person has no support network except for you, then you as the wife, who have been taught your whole life that it's important for you to make the people around you happy, especially the men, you are going to be sacrificing your own mental health and happiness for the sake of keeping that man happy.
Like I said, not just for the sake of keeping the man happy, but for the sake of America. Like for the sake of, like, the country. Like, it is a woman's duty to the country.
Lie back and think of England.
But here's the thing. I don't live in a marriage with those traditional structures of like power.
Yeah, because you're awesome.
And so is my husband, actually, because he takes the kids to the doctor's appointments. He's the one who cooks the meals. He's the one that does the laundry, you know, and
he's awesome. Hi, James.
The thing that sucks about that is that we have been so like deeply brainwashed to think that that is not like what a real man is supposed to do.
Wow, I never really thought about how concerted an effort it was to make, like, I knew that it was a concerted effort to make the white suburbs a thing, but I never really thought about how marriage was tied up in that as like, this is your duty, you know, to live the American dream. You have to, you know, get married, love your husband, vacuum the floor every day, take your happy pills so that you don't mind having to take care of the kids all the time. And, you know, do barbecues on the weekends with your neighbors. Like, because it all seems so natural now because it's how we all grew up. But that's even like the front yard versus the backyard, like being like engineered that way. Like, of course that's true. It makes so much sense, but I never
Yeah.
really thought about it. Ugh,
Yeah.
weird.
I lived in kind of a middle class, like upper middle class neighborhood in Billings, Montana, several years ago. And it was kind of like like what Montana would call a suburb. And it was like the front yards, nobody had fences in their front yards. It was like one big green front yard, and everybody kept their grass like the same distance. And we all like would be out in the front yard and we'd wave at our neighbors and whatever.
Oh my God.
And then the backyard had fences, and we knew like that was like the family space. And so like the
Yeah.
kids were playing, and so it was very, very much that. And it actually like totally gives me the creeps thinking about like how it's made to be that way to this day. And it feels good. It feels secure, right?
Right.
But ultimately, like we were not happy there at all. We lasted a year there in Billings. It's a was not the place for us to live. And we moved back to Missoula, Montana, where everything is like, yeah. I don't live in a suburb, but
Missoula, if you're not from Montana, you might not know, but Missoula is where all the weirdos live.
Yeah.
We're a liberal and free-thinking bastion in the state of Montana.
Yeah.
Not to say that there are not, middle class, like very normal white heteronormative suburbs here, because there are, but there's also a lot of people who don't live that way here.
Mm-hmm.
God, this is totally a theory. Please, please, please don't take me very seriously, people. But like the nuclear family, as it has been forced on us, is the source of massive isolation in America. Like,
oh, absolutely.
I think that there's a lot of mental health issues going on in America today. I think that there always have been, and I'm not saying that the nuclear family is responsible for mental health problems, but I am saying that when you take a group of social animals like human beings and separate them into these little units of, 3 to 5 people and a dog, and put a fence around it and tell them that like all of your personal stuff is supposed to stay in this space, that it is a massive break from the way that like we evolved to be as like communal group animals. Like we're supposed to have access to a much larger support network than just our parents. And if our parents are messes, which they universally are because everybody's a mess, we're kind of stuck in that space. And I feel like in that way, the suburban nuclear family, you must get married and have babies in this way, that model, I wouldn't say it's a total failure, but it's definitely, okay, I don't think the healthiest model that there is.
Well, it was not originally set up for white people. That model was originally set up for Native Americans.
Oh, right. Oh my God. You're right.
Through the Dawes Act, when everybody was allotted land, they were told that they were to live in this house with only your like wife and your children, and they were trying to separate the relationships and the multi-generational family systems that Natives had by putting everybody on this plot of land and with this specific group, and saying that this is what you need to do to be an American. We're going to give you this land and this is where you stay. You don't go anywhere but there. But then somehow that same idea evolved to suburbs. People in the suburbs, you have been colonized by Indian policy. Like, for Natives, it was actually enforced that we had to stay in our own homes. We couldn't have multiple like generations living in a home. And that idea still exists today. I was denied a house when I was trying to find a place to rent when I started a job in another part of the state. I went to go see this house and talk to this guy about renting it, and he told me that he doesn't rent houses to Indians because they have all of their families live with them. Like they have their whole family live with them. He told me that's why he doesn't rent to Indians or Natives. He said Indians.
Because your grandmother lives with you, and that is bad.
Right. He was, and this guy was an immigrant to America. He was a first generation immigrant to the United States.
I mean, that's true all over the world. Lots of people have multiple